All right, what's up, guys? Let me just put my microphone on. We're ready to rock. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is, what is today? It's Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. It is May 5th. It is Cinco de Mayo. So happy Cinco de Mayo to everybody out there. We are reporting live from Central Park South. The one and only, the gorgeous, the beautiful Central Park South. Very unique, very coveted area we are streaming here from tonight. As you can see on the right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see all of the horse and carriages that are out, waiting for the tourists and the like. But you know what, guys? I was thinking about this today. So I was walking around the city. We'll get to the finance stuff in a minute, but I don't know. The city didn't seem as busy today for whatever reason. Although it may be because, excuse me, I'm still battling this kind of congestion here. But it may be because we had the Met Gala in the city this week. Then we had the new Tiffany flagship store that was opening. So the city seemed to be packed all week. I don't know. I was walking around today. I was in the office a little bit. Didn't seem like there was too many people. So I think it's going to be a quiet night. Anyway, happy Cinco de Mayo to everybody. What I think we're going to do tonight, okay, if I don't get distracted, we are going to walk straight down 6th Avenue. We are going to blow past Radio City Music Hall, okay? We can't stop and look at all the attractions tonight because, guys, we're going to go to the West Village. We haven't been there in a while, and it always takes us so long to get there because we're distracted by 220 Central Park South. We're distracted by, the Extel buildings, which is 157 in Central Park Tower, as well as the Steinway building. So I think we're going to be steadfast today. I want to show you guys the West Village. It is a gorgeous neighborhood in New York City, and I think it's going to be pretty fun because it's Cinco de Mayo. Anyway, we'll get to the markets now. Rally day across the board on Wall Street. S&P 500 finished the week at 4136. The NASDAQ Composite also rallied, I think, over 100 points today. NASDAQ Composite finished the week at 12,235. And then last but not least, the Dow 30 rallying into the close to finish the week at 33,674. Now, what I want to focus on and talk about tonight are a couple things. Now, we have moved through earnings season, where we're still in the thick of it, but the vast majority of companies that I think are most important have actually reported. So we're going to do a quick recap of Apple that reported yesterday. We did a deep dive there. We're going to talk about Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, and Meta in terms of their net income and profitability, okay? Because if you remember from last night's live stream, one of the things that I'm a little bit concerned about in this market is the lack of breadth. So what I mean by that is if you look under the hood of the market, the indices are really masking a lot of the damage. So if you look at a couple metrics like the new highs to new low list, today on the NYC, we had 35 new highs versus 191 new lows. Okay, so out of all the stocks in the NYSE, 35 of them were making new record highs, while 191 of them were making new lows and new 52-week lows. If you think about the overall advanced decline for the day, 705 stocks were advancing to 1,674 declining. Now, for the vast majority of people out there and viewers, you really wouldn't notice this, right? Because today, Apple went gangbusters right out the bat on the open. I think we rallied almost 5% today. Now, Apple's only 8 points away from an all-time record high, guys. So, with Apple making up 7% of the S&P 500, it really masks a lot of the damage under the hood. So we're going to talk about the Russell. We'll talk about the lows to highs. I do want to touch on crude oil. We're going to cover gold, silver, and we're going to talk about digital gold, which is Bitcoin, which I think right now is trading at 29,600. If I had to make a prediction, I don't really like making these predictions, but screw it. We'll just do one for fun over the weekend. I think Bitcoin's going to blow past 30,000 again. This weekend, Ethereum is trading a couple points under 2,000. And then we'll finish the night talking about our good friend Christine Lagarde. Yes, that is true. Christine Lagarde, the head of the ECB, they decided to raise interest rates by 25 basis points. All right, let's say hello to everybody in the chat, and we will head down to New York City's gorgeous West Village. I see my friend Nina is here. Hey Nina, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Our good moderator, Photos from Around New York, is here. Thank you so much for helping us out with the stream. And happy Friday to you, Photos. Jenny Trickett says, Tom, Apple basically drives the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. Yeah, I mean, Jenny, you make a good point. Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about that, and it's a little bit concerning, but also I want to play devil's advocate because I don't like being too. I don't like giving you guys just my narrative. I sort of like to play both sides just so you guys can make your own decisions. But we'll talk about that. Maybe it's not all that bad, but we'll talk about that. But you're right. If chances are, if Apple, for example, Jenny, good comment there. If Apple's up 5% on the day, I mean, you could pretty much best believe the broader based indice is going to be up. You know, if you go to slickcharts.com, okay, once again, that is slickcharts.com. First link on the page will say S&P 500. If you click that, it'll actually give you the real-time capitalization breakdowns for the weightings in the indice. So I think Apple now has an all-time record weighting in the S&P. I think it's over 7%. That's significant. Hey, Steph UH is here. It says, very pretty night. Thank you, Steph. Welcome to New York. We are streaming Central Park South. This is actually, I'm blanking on the name of the hotel here. I was going to say Grand Hyatt for some reason, but it's not. I don't know why I'm blanking on the name. It's the Ritz-Carlton. There we go. Ritz-Carlton. Hey, Crow Dog. Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining. Chan says, recently I have been looking forward to your videos. Thank you, Chan. Hey, Photos. Oh yeah, Photos from Around New York. I saw you. Richard Vogel's here. Sunshine after rain. God bless you. Thank you for joining us. Teresa Diaz, TD. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Michelle K is joining us from Tampa, Florida. Good to see you. Arctic Trend. Long time no see. Dave Moore. Hey, Dave. Welcome. All right, I'm gonna try not to get distracted here because I gotta get you guys to the West Village. But I just wanna give you one more shot of Central Park Tower, 157, and the Steinway Tower. Now, an interesting thing about the Steinway Tower, one of our viewers, Walks in Wall Street viewers, was actually one of the lead designers and architects on that project. So that's so cool. You know, we have a really diverse audience here. Now, a lot of us work in finance, a lot of us work in tech, but there's many of us that do many different things, such as architects, so pretty cool. Mac Lover is here, says, hey Tom in chat, you sound great. Mac Lover, thoughts on Apple's earnings report yesterday? We did a deep dive into it. I don't think I saw you in the chat, but I'd love your thoughts. Now, we did cover Apple in depth last night, but we also did talk about ChatGPT in relation to Microsoft and how I'm utilizing it and how some of the other viewers in the chat are utilizing ChatGPT. Now, I was thinking about this today because I actually had lunch with a really good friend that I haven't seen in a while. Really, really good friend from college. And well, we'll show you guys 432 Park Avenue here. Now, one of the things my friend said today, he's like, you know, if you think about the ecosystem that Apple owns, right, there's pretty much an iPhone in every other American's hand. Like, we're streaming live right now on an iPhone 13 mini, by the way. He's like, how easy would it be for Tim Cook and his team over there at Apple to create, which I think they're probably going to do, guys. I mean, I want your opinion on this, but Apple is probably going to create some sort of ChatGPT product that's exclusive to Apple and developed in-house. And how easy could that be to substitute their Siri product for like an Apple AI, Apple GPT, something like that? If that happens and Tim Cook successfully does that, I think it's pretty much lights out. It's pretty much game over. I mean, the integration would just be a one simple push out to all the iOS users, and I think it would be a smashing success. Any thoughts on that? Because I think Apple doesn't have a choice. If they want to compete and stay competitive with Microsoft and many other companies too, such as Alphabet, they're going to have an AI product. Hey, D is here, says, isn't there supposed to be a full moon tonight? I think so. I think you're right. That means there's going to be a lot of crazies out. Just kidding. Hey, Mr. Nobody here. Good to see you. Of course. Absolutely. I remember you. Abdul is here. Hey, Hawaii. What's up? Says aloha, Tom. Good to see you. Long time no see. I'm happy to be back. I'm really, really glad I'm back in action, back streaming. I see my good friend Carol S. says hello, Tom, in chat. Bill says Apple is going to be very slow to respond because of their fears around the AI doing something that creates bad PR. Well, I don't know if they can afford to do that. Right? I don't know if they could afford to wait. And this is why, well, guys, look at the rig on that car. That is so cool. Did you guys see that? They mounted a camera, like a really, really nice camera on the front of that car. That's really cool. That's how they shoot movies sometimes. Now, I've always told this story back in the day. One of my first jobs I ever had in Manhattan. I was a teenager. I was working at a rental car place. My job was to, when customers would return the vehicles, I would take them down into the basement and vacuum them out and wash them. And Jerry Seinfeld, had his personal garage right across the street from us. And he had a really amazing setup where I think they took all of the seats out of the back of, I think it was a Suburban or an Escalade, and they put a really cool camera rig in there, and Jerry Seinfeld would drive behind that vehicle, and they would record the comedians in cars getting coffee. Anyway, not to get super off track. Will M says, I think I saw one of those Google Street cars the other day. Big camera setup, top. Yeah, you know what? What is that company called that Alphabet has a stake in? I can't believe I'm blanking on the name. It's Waymo. So Google has an autonomous driving unit called Waymo. Has anybody seen those cars? I mean, they must have hundreds of thousands of dollars or thousands of dollars worth of sensors all around the vehicles. And in some specific markets, I think Phoenix and maybe Austin, Texas, some Domino's pizzerias have fully autonomous delivery drivers. Anybody see that? That's the future. Talk about the future. That's it. Hey, Tariq Khan, what's up? Says Google Bard AI works as well as ChatGPT. I don't think Apple stands a chance in the AI race. Interesting. Well, Tariq, what's your thoughts on that? Because I guess I'll just quickly preface what we were talking about yesterday. You know, I'm using ChatGPT to write some cold emailing and cold calling scripts, as well as helping me develop a trading bot, right? It's very, very good at critiquing code and helping you write better code. ChatGPT is very good at that. But what I've also found myself doing is utilizing ChatGPT in substitution of a Google search. And I just subconsciously realized I was doing that about a couple days ago, and I'm like, wow, that's not good news for Google. So instead of, typing in, places to eat on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, right into Google search, I find myself doing that in ChatGPT, and it actually gives me better answers. Anybody else find them doing the same thing? So I think if Apple wants to be competitive, and it can be very easy, by the way, too, I think they should develop some sort of Apple GPT and replace Siri with the Apple GPT. Because let's face it, Siri is so egregiously horrible. Now, does anybody disagree with me on that? Any iOS users in the chat, who can honestly say I think we have our answer. Here's where all the people are. I think there's some maybe big event uptown. But who could honestly say that they utilize Siri on a day-to-day basis and it's not just cumbersome and ridiculous? Tariq Khan says Google will probably integrate Bard into their search engine. I think they should probably do it quick, because if you look at my browser, right, I have a trillion different tabs open. Most of them are just sec.gov tabs. If I'm building like a financial model or something, it's easier just to go to sec.gov and pull and plug the data. But the first tab that I have open now is ChatGPT, and I just use it as Google search. Hey, Dan Zhang says, Tom, the only problem with ChatGPT now is that its data and information are not up to the current day when you ask for it. Ah, interesting. Oh, and you're talking about market prices from last year. Yeah, so Dan makes a good point. Now, I think that is with the free version. I don't know. But I've noticed when asking ChatGPT for stock quotes and things like that, it'll give you a generic response and say, oh, I'm only an AI language machine learning algorithm. I can't give you particular stock quotes in real time, but I can point you in the right direction of where to get that data. However, and I don't know if this to be true, by the way, this is total speculation. I think if you have the paid version of ChatGPT, you probably get real-time data for everything. And the only reason why I say that is because Ken Griffin of Citadel Securities came out on a Bloomberg interview and said that he and his company, right, the most successful hedge fund and market maker on planet Earth, is in talks with ChatGPT to develop an enterprise-grade license. And that's probably going to cost them millions of dollars a year. Hey, Haas Manning is here. Good to see you. Keith says, I use Siri, but it isn't the best. Yeah, I mean, for me, it just seems like, when I use Siri, it seems like old tech. Ryan Beck says, his quants plus ChatGPT equals insanity. Oh, yeah, it's going to be ridiculous. Yeah, so to Ryan Beck's point, and this is why, when we talk about the financial markets on this stream, I try to really, get the point across. This is Nuremberger Berman, by the way. I just love this lobby. My good friend is a VP here. Funny enough, well, anyway, this is 1290 Avenue of the Americas, the Nuremberger Berman building. It's right across the street from UBS. UBS has now officially taken over Credit Suisse, so there's a little bit of monopoly over there in Switzerland. Adjacent to UBS is Mizuho. They actually have their sales and trading floor right above the MLB building. But anyway, I mean, to Ryan Beck's point, I mean, if you think about all of the, I should say, the hedge funds that produce the most reliable returns and the most successful returns, they all have something in common. They all tend to be quantitative shops. You think about Renaissance Technologies with Jim Simons. You think about jump trading. You think about D.E. Shaw with David Shaw. All of these companies or trading firms, market makers, jump trading is another one, utilize a quantitative strategy. So can you imagine if these quants, which are PhDs in physics and math, are now utilizing ChatGPT to refine their code, to write better code? I mean, it's just not even worth your time trying to day trade. And that's why I always hammer on that and say day trading statistically is not worth it. You are guaranteed to lose money because you are competing against Citadel. You're competing against 2 Sigma, Renaissance, D.E. Shaw. You're not going to beat those guys, right? So you need to expand your time horizon and hold your stocks for a longer period of time. It's a good point. Okay, so now we are walking past the Tonight Show studios. There is a pretty big piece of news going on, I think, in Manhattan. I'm not sure if this is countrywide, but a viewer yesterday pointed out that there's a big strike. I think it's called the writers' strike. So the writers' union is striking, demanding higher pay, higher wages, better working conditions. So I think all of the Tonight shows, like The Late Show, who's the other guy? Jimmy Kimmel, and there's one more. It's Kimmel, I don't know, you guys get the picture. I think they're all off the air until they could resolve this strike, right? Hey, Chris Peterson is here. Hey, everybody. What's up, Chris? Welcome. Ravenclaw says, Tom, the strike is also in Hollywood. Yeah, I mean, I don't know when they're going to resolve that. Hopefully it's resolved soon. Brick Stonewall says, yeah, day trading would stress me out. I mean, you just got to run the probabilities of who you are competing against in the marketplace, right? And due to, hold on, we'll go around this way. Due to algorithmic trading, right, and quants, intraday volatility has fallen off a cliff in the market. And if you think about what a trader needs to be successful, a trader needs volatility, right? You need vol to make money in the market. So naturally, what you should do is look for companies that are compounding out their earnings growth, compounding out their revenue growth, have really good pre-tax and after-tax margins with 25% plus return on equity, and you want to build big positions in these names, and you want to hold them through at least 6 consecutive beat and raise quarters. Because another interesting statistic about the stock market is a lot of people, like retail does everything the complete wrong way, right? They try to buy and sell stocks intraday. And if you look at the data, the vast majority of the movements in the stock market actually happen when the stock market's closed. It's all after hours when you have these big moves, right? You know, think about the last time you were watching a stock that reported earnings, and you know, right across your Bloomberg terminal, you know, stock's up 20% after hours, right? And then it rips into the open on the next day. If you were just buying and selling stocks and churning your account, and you're not holding these things, right, and picking good companies, you're not going to participate in any of that capital appreciation. All right, I think we're making good time. I want to get you guys to the West Village. I'm going to make a move around here. We're coming up on Bank of America Tower, by the way, to the right. And speaking of D.E. Shaw, you know, we were just talking about the quantitative trading firms on Wall Street. I actually used to work in the same building as D.E. Shaw, which is right to your left right here. This is the Marsh McLennan building. So my office was on the first floor, which was right there. D.E. Shaw had I think the 2nd through the 7th floors here, and then the rest is Marsh McLennan, which Marsh McLennan actually had the majority of their employees in the World Trade Center before 9/11. And obviously after the horrible terrorist attack, they now moved here at 1166 Avenue of the Americas. This is an amazing building. I worked out here for many, many years. Hey, Tariq, says Tom, come what may, nice to see you. Moving around again. Yes, Tariq, thank you so much, man. It's good to be back, and it's actually a pretty nice night out in New York. Yesterday was cold and rainy. Tonight's actually pretty good. Let me catch up on some of the chats. Hey, Ren1018 says Americans are starting to watch more international shows, so Netflix is just going to license more of these Asian and European shows while the strike happens. It doesn't hurt Netflix in the end. That's interesting. I never thought about that. Hold on, I got to put you guys down here. I got to tie my shoe. So you guys are going to get Walks on Wall Street rat camera, okay? Watch out for the rats. All right, there we go. Let me catch up on some of the chats. Tariq says Apple is historically a design company, not a data or innovation company. Well, their services building actually grew quite substantially. Now, I mean, Tariq makes a good point. Does anybody remember in 2013? I actually remember this quite vividly. Ooh, I think the battery on my gimbal may die. Oh well, we'll go until it dies. You know, Wall Street historically actually never, they would refuse to assign Apple a services valuation or a software valuation. They would only say Apple is a hardware company. It's not a data company. It's not a software company. And I think Tom Lee of Fundstrat was one of the only analysts who would always come on CNBC, and he would always sort of fight the trend on that. And I have a lot of admiration for him because he was spot on. He's like, Apple is absolutely going to be a services business, right? If you think about anybody right now in the chat who has an iPhone, this is the One Vanderbilt building we're looking at now. But anybody in the chat who has an iPhone, iPad, you know, name your Apple product, right? Chances are, even if you buy the highest capacity, let's say if you buy a 256 gig, I think that may be the highest capacity, 256, maybe. Anyway, if you think about the output of data now in terms of video capture and photo capture, if you take an hour-long video in 4K at 60 frames a second, pretty much half of your storage is totally gone, right? So as the quality of data increases, you're going to need more storage. So what I'm trying to get at is, I'm assuming almost everybody in the chat purchases additional storage in iCloud, right? I think I pay like $50 a month in subscription services to Apple for extra data. I think I get like 5 terabytes of data, and then, you know, the Apple Music and the like. Anybody else spend additional money on iCloud storage? That's reoccurring revenue for Apple. And, you know, one of the bright spots of the earnings report not only was better than expected iPhone sales, but it was also the services revenue too. And that is really, really predictable and sticky revenue that Wall Street loves to see. Here we are, 42nd Street. You can see the Empire State Building lit up, absolutely beautiful. Jordan J says, is this pre-recorded? Yes, it is. Ren 10 says, Tom, I manage the Apple products for my company and use Jamf. Apple's still really behind with enterprise support, still stuck with Windows for the foreseeable future. Yeah, you know, Ren 1018, that's a great comment. That used to be my world all day, every day. Now, for those of you who don't know, Jamf is an MDM product, like a mobile device manager for Apple products. And I used to sell a lot of that type of software. I would sell more along the lines of like third-party MDM, like cybersecurity products. For example, you could check out a company called Scale Fusion, as well as CodeProof. Now, the CEO of CodeProof is actually a good friend of mine, Satish. And Satish was actually one of the first developers on Microsoft's MDM product. And then he branched off and started his own company, CodeProof. And I sold a ton of that software. He's a very successful guy. And, you know, if it's a big enough corporation, you know, if you're working at a company that has 1,000 people, you know, they'll probably hire an administrator just to manage all of that IT infrastructure, right? So they'll manage your Jamf, they'll manage the CodeProof. You know, many large organizations, now that we're standing outside of Salesforce Tower right here, chances are if you work for a big Fortune 500, Fortune 50 company, you're going to have a Salesforce admin that pretty much just manages the Salesforce and the day-to-day operations of that. But that's interesting, Ren 10, that you're not a big fan of Jamf. What are some features that you feel are lacking a little bit and that you would like to see added to that? Anyway, ticker symbol CRM, this is Mark Benioff's company, Salesforce Tower. Elvis is here, says hello, good to see you. Hey, Austin City Limits, welcome. NBA Elias says, hey Tom, I hope you had a good week. NBA Elias, good to see you, man. I did have a good week. I wish the same for you, and have a good weekend. Happy Cinco de Mayo, by the way. If you guys look all the way down 6th Avenue, you'll see the One World Trade Center. It's a clear night, beautiful night. We are here, 42nd Street, Bryant Park, headed to the West Village tonight. Jesus, good evening from Minneapolis. Welcome everybody from Minneapolis. Gary Carpenter, always a pleasure to see you. Danny says, how attractive is New York for someone who has lived in Iran? Very attractive. It's attractive for all human beings from all over the place. Very attractive. Frank says, I'm starting a cloud storage later this year. Have not paid anything yet. Yeah, I mean, look, if you think about it, you take, especially if you have kids. I mean, if you take 2 or 3, just spend 2 or 3 weekends taking photos and videos in 4K. I mean, your storage on your internal device is totally shot. So cloud growth and services growth for Apple is only going to grow, in my opinion. Anyway, Jordan J says, I had a terrible week. Someone curb stomped me. All right. Rodrigo's here. Good to see you. All right, so we got to cover a couple things. I'm operating with a newer gimbal, so I'm not sure if it's charged or not, so we may go out. So we'll just work through our topics here. But I want to talk about crude oil. You guys want to do that? We'll talk about crude oil real quick. So let's look at crude futures, ticker symbol CL. If you look at the futures contract for crude, we ripped today throughout the entire day, up 4%. Now, we closed at 71.34. However, we are still sitting well below the 50 and the 200-day moving average for crude. Now, we talked about this, and Stanley Druckenmiller, oh guys, check this out. He has a D.E. Shaw bag. He's probably working at the hedge fund, which makes sense. We're only a couple blocks away from it. Anyway, so if you think about crude, Stanley Druckenmiller actually came out and made a similar statement to what we've been talking about, and that is crude oil this time last year, specifically March of 2022, we hit a high of about $130 a barrel for crude. We traded all the way down at today's close at 71.34. So what does that mean in terms of signaling for a recession? Well, it probably is signaling, the market is telling us that demand for crude oil is not going to be high, which is actually it was actually in stark contrast to the consensus opinion on Wall Street, because what big notable event happened over the last 2 months? Well, if you said the China zero COVID policy going away, you would be correct. So there was many analysts and many economists that were expecting higher demand for crude, higher consumer spending on mainland China due to the easement thereof of the COVID restrictions. But we're still seeing crude take a big hit. Now, this could have just been a rally here. I think in order for us to have a sustained uptrend in crude, we're going to need crude oil to break above the 50-day and the 200-day moving average. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because if you turn your attention to the XLE, okay, the energy ETF, the Spiders Energy ETF XLE, we've been talking and inferring that this energy trade may be over, may be done. That has sort of been my viewpoint for the last 6 months now. And the XLE is also trading below its 50-day and 200-day moving average as well. So I think it'd be fun to take just a quick poll in the chat, because chances are the vast majority of us, drive cars. We fill up our cars or mopeds or Vespas at the gas station. Do you guys think that crude oil is going lower, or do you think we're going to have another rally and maybe even test all-time record highs of $130? I don't know. If it were me, I think my consensus estimate is that we're probably going to chop around in the 70s. I don't think we're ever going to go back to $100 crude anytime soon. Tariq says, Tom, crude won't go up till the election day eve. Very specific. Interesting, though. Maybe you'll be right. Jesus' opinion would or should say demand would go up due to summer travel, correct? Yeah, that's another catalyst too. I mean, we're headed into summer, you know, the busiest travel season in the United States. But I mean, think about the catalyst for zero COVID policy in China going away. That's huge. I mean, people should be out traveling. People should be out, you know, flying around. I don't know. We'll see. Jenny Trickett says it will go up. Summer always goes up. So a lot of people are... Okay, Ryan Beck says buy when it hits 70, sell at 85. Okay. Well, I mean, just so long as if we stay above $90 a barrel, these oil companies are going to continue to make money hand over fist. But I think anything under that could pose an issue. KM Ramsey says, hello, Tom and chat. Welcome back. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Pandering Pelosi says we're going to hit record highs in crude. Interesting. Now, the reason why I say the opposite is because for the past year, if you've turned on CNBC, if you've turned on Bloomberg, the mainstream media outlets have been hammering on this energy trade and talking their book like crazy on the mainstream financial channels. And when that type of stuff usually happens, you know the move is pretty much over. I mean, I remember vividly doing the live stream and crude was ripping. I think it was up 10% while we were doing the stream, hitting $130 a barrel. You know, Goldman Sachs, it was like breaking news. Goldman Sachs analyst predicts $200 a barrel crude. I'm like, all right, this is it. Like, you could call it a day on this trade. You know, another thing that you could have called a day on is the dollar trade. Now, does anybody remember, and I posted this on my Twitter, by the way. If you want to see the tweet, you could follow us at Walks Wall Street. Now, Barron's came out with a big cover story. This was, I think, maybe 6 months ago. Real quick shot of the Empire State Building. Gorgeous, gorgeous, classic color scheme, the white. Really beautiful Art Deco building here in New York City. Now, Barron's came out with the cover story, and I promise you, you can go to my Twitter and look at the actual graphic of the cover story. It was a photograph of a dollar, but instead of George Washington, it was George Washington, you know, flexing his muscles. And I think the headline of the story was the almighty greenback, the dollar's going higher. And I'm like, yep, you can call that a day. Dollar's going lower. It's exactly what happened. The Dixie now today, if you look at the Dixie, okay, if you have tradingview.com, MarketSmith, or if you have Bloomberg, right, Bloomberg terminal, pull up the Dixie, okay, ticker symbol DXY. We're at 101. Now, if we break below 100, I think we could go to 95 in a hurry, like a real hurry. Now, I think the only reason why we're holding that 101, 100 level right now is because I think the market is waiting to see what we're going to do with the debt limit stuff. God forbid the U.S. defaults on its debt, which I think is pretty much slim to none. It's definitely not going to happen. I think you're going to see the dollar absolutely crater if that does happen. However, I think on the back of, you know, a resolution to the debt ceiling, maybe we'll, you know, raise the debt ceiling. There's no way we're going to cut spending. I think you'll probably see the Dixie rally a little bit. So we are here at 34th Street, Herald Square. This is the main Macy's here. Ryan Beck says, I've been accumulating a position in liquid natural gas. A brutally cold winter in Europe and it goes back up. Plus they are building another refinery, says Ryan Beck. Interesting. Tariq Khan says WTI 71. Brad's Brain says thoughts on Gates' AOC proposal to ban trading while in Congress. I'm 100% for it. Yeah, so that was kind of interesting to see, right? Now, the congressman is called Matt Gaetz. Is that right? Am I pronouncing that right? And obviously AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I think they're both supporting a partisan bill that would ban the ownership of stocks. Now, I haven't read it, but because I usually block all of those keywords because it's usually just political infighting on Twitter. But here's where I do disagree with it. And if I was in Congress, this is how I would have wrote the bill. Now, I think it's really stupid to say that if you're in Congress, you shouldn't be able to own stocks. I think it should be revised a little bit to say if you are a public servant, right, if you're in Congress, if you're a congressman or congresswoman, you're allowed to own stocks, but you're limited to buying an index fund, like a broader based index, right? Because you can't just tell these people that they can't save for retirement. The problem is if you're speculating on individual stocks, that's a big issue, okay? If you just buy the S&P 500, that's fine. But when you have a congressman or a congresswoman speculating on individual stocks, that's a big issue because, for example, and this actually happened, Congress passed a bill to increase spending on cybersecurity, which I think was the right thing to do. I think it makes sense. But you had a bunch of congressmen and congresswomen, both Democrats and Republicans, by the way, on both sides, purchasing call options on individual cybersecurity stocks and making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, you're trading off of insider information because a trader like me or you or anybody who are watching the chat doesn't have access to that piece of legislation before it's released to the public, right? So I think the bill should be revised a little bit to say if you're a public servant, you should be banned from trading individual stocks, but every 6 months you're able to add to a retirement account that buys an index fund. That would sort of be the way I would put it. I don't know, any thoughts there? What are your guys' thoughts on that? Agree, disagree? The LT Prod says own stocks, yes, but trade stocks, no for Congress, is the LT Prod. NBA Elias says if somehow the war ends between Russia and Ukraine, Russian oil on the market will move prices. Oh, we got the FDNY coming by here. EMV says disagreement. Roz999 says why not have a compliance type department like we have for banking employees, grab a compliance expert. Yeah, well, here's the thing, right? So if you work at an investment bank or you work at a bank in general, you can buy individual stocks, but it needs to be disclosed, right? You can't actively trade individual stocks. And if you do buy individual stocks, it needs to be disclosed and go through compliance and things like that. I don't know. I think for me, and you make a good point, right? That is a good idea. Maybe that is the answer. But here's my other point as we're going to head through Koreatown now. Countries get extremely, extremely corrupted when people know that if they can become a politician, they will get extremely, extremely wealthy and enrich themselves and their families, right? If you look at a lot of other countries, I won't name them specifically, right, out of respect, but many of the politicians are just totally fleecing the public and they're, you know, deca-billionaires, right? You look at a lot of the Russian oligarchs and things like that. Now, public service is supposed to be exactly that. It's supposed to be public service, okay? It needs to attract the type of person that says, or that doesn't say, hey, I want to run for office because I want to get rich, right? If you want to get rich, go in the private sector like everybody else, like me and you, and, you know, work at a company or build a business and do it the right way, right? You shouldn't be attracted to public service for the power and influence you have. You could utilize that to make a ton of money. You know, public service is supposed to be exactly that, public service. If you want to get rich and strike it rich in America, you go the private route, go to the private sector, like everybody else. I don't know, that's my take. Is that a little bit too harsh though? I don't think that's too harsh. Now, I will say there's a lot of people in public office that do the right thing. They're not in it just to try to get rich and get power and influence, you know? But, you know, there's a lot of politicians out there that you say, okay, if the salary is 175 grand, you know, how are you worth a couple $100 million? You know, the math just doesn't really work out there unless, you know, you're like a Stanley Druckenmiller or something like that, which is just only one Stanley Druckenmiller, and that's the Druckmann himself. Who knows? The LT Prods is making infomercial, not Congress, if you want to get rich. Hilarious. Everybody, real quick, I'll point this out. This is New York City's Koreatown. So this is 32nd Street, Korea Way. You have gorgeous views of the Empire State Building, and it's a really, really beautiful place. Right here, 32nd Street, Broadway, but we must continue to make our way downtown because we are headed to the West Village tonight. Brick stone walls. There was a time early on when politics wasn't full-time for their occupation. Interesting. Lotus, we need to put in term limits. Ryan-Beck's many get very lucrative careers once done with their service, plus take into account a lot of the lifetime benefits. That's true. That's true. Ryan-Beck makes a good point. You know, chances are if you ever make it to the level of president or vice president, after your presidency or vice presidency, you're probably going to get ridiculous speaking gigs at all of these Wall Street mega banks, and you know, it's going to be like $1 million per speaking gig, and then you're going to get a book deal, and so it's very lucrative. You make a good point for sure. Really good point. Yeah, I don't know. I think in general, to answer your question, I forget who asked the question now. I think it may have been Al Berg in the chat. I don't know. I agree generally with the bill that was proposed by AOC and Matt Gaetz, but I think there just needs to be some tweaks. I want to point this out to you guys. This is West 30th Street, Broadway. This is actually the brand new site of the Virgin Hotels. Now, a couple weeks ago, I think it was actually a couple months ago now, Richard Branson was right here doing the grand opening of the Virgin Hotel. So could you imagine staying in this hotel with a north-facing room view? You're probably going to see the Empire State Building in an unobstructed view. I think there's a really nice pool on the sky deck there and a really nice lounge. So this is open right now, the Virgin Hotels. Richard Branson was here in New York City for the grand opening. Wow, Ryan-Beck's Jen Psaki has a TV show now after being the White House press secretary. Well, I guess that's technically, well, it's not like she's making policy, right, or anything like that, but yeah, I mean, look, if you work for the president, I mean, it's a pretty notable role, right? It's a pretty coveted, sought-after role. You're probably going to be set for life. Anyway, good conversation, by the way. We haven't talked about gold in a while, so I think it's appropriate to talk about it now, especially after we had another banking collapse with First Republic now being taken over by our good friend Jamie Dimon. Now, gold today, I think, finished at $20.15 an ounce. Is that right? $2,015 an ounce gold. But again, if you go to TradingView.com, if you go to your Bloomberg terminal, or if you go to MarketSmith, one of the things you'll see is that 270 number, that 2,070 number on gold. And it's been rejected not once, not twice, but 3 times now. And somebody's keeping this thing down. I think somebody on the street has a huge position in gold, and they're keeping it down and trying to accumulate it, trying to knock it down. If you go to my Twitter page, at Walks Wall Street, you'll sort of see what I'm talking about. I posted a weekly chart of gold, and you can see exactly what I mean. Now, you'll see this price action in the handle. Over the last 6 months, gold has gone up and tested 2073 times. Most recently, 2 days ago, we had a huge rejection there, and we're still trading near all-time record highs. Let me just walk away from these people real quick. We're still trading near all-time record highs, and I think it makes sense. the fundamentals in the global macro environment supports gold being near all-time record highs, right? We had the Silicon Valley banking collapse. We've had numerous other regional banks collapse, most recently and most notably being the First Republic Bank going under. If you look at the KRE, so ticker symbol KRE, which is the ETF that tracks the price action of all of the regional banks, that's been getting clocked. And we are almost at the COVID-19 lows, if you could think about that. So if you thought there was a credit crunch and a liquidity crisis during COVID, I mean, what do you think's going on now? Being that the Fed funds rate is now 5 to 5.25%, and all of these regional banks are getting pounded, trading near COVID lows. So with that being said, oh, look at that mouse, or the rat, look at it. You guys see it? Those little guys, fast. I think that was the first rat of the night on Walks on Wall Street. I don't know, thoughts there, anybody? Bullish gold, anybody long gold? Now, I said if gold breaks 2 all-time record highs, right, a conclusive break to all-time record highs on volume, I will be getting involved there. Probably a huge position size. Because the measured move on that breakout, I mean, we've been in this 12-year, almost a decade-long base on gold. The measured move is almost 50% higher. Jeff W277, this is KRE up 6.5% today. Yeah, so Jeff, KRE, right, regional banks, I think we said yesterday that these things are getting pounded into the dirt, right? And the main reason for that is because short sellers are all over this. And we said that I'd be very careful shorting this stuff here, because you're probably going to have these massive neck snapper sort of bear market short covering rallies. And if you look at the general market today, and you make a great point, Apple was up 5%, and a lot of the stocks that are just really, really garbage, junky stocks were up, you know, sometimes double digits, bouncing off the bottom, probably going to be rallying back to the moving averages. So I would be really careful there. Now, this place, guys, is always packed. This Anita Gelato here. Now, for those of you who may be visiting New York City this summer, New York City did an amazing, amazing thing. Now, this is Broadway we're standing at, corner 26th Street and Broadway. And this summer, the entire street is going to be closed down, pedestrians only. As you can see, you have a bike lane going north, a bike lane going south, and then the rest of this is going to be open space for only pedestrians. And I think that's an unbelievable thing. I think it's really great. I actually like New York City much, much better with pedestrian only. I think it adds more of a European city vibe. You know, when you see people sitting out and eating and dining outside, it just makes the, I don't know, the feeling and the vibe of the city a little bit better, a little bit more cheerful. Would anybody agree or disagree with that? I'm a big supporter of closing off Broadway to vehicle traffic. Hey, my friend Dusty Cole, good to see you, Dusty. Thank you for joining us. Justin asks, Tom, is this permanent or only for the summer months? This is going to be permanent. And I'm actually really excited about it, and I agree with it. Now, I think the biggest benefit to this is the bike lanes. If you guys have been watching Walks on Wall Street over the course of the year, Broadway used to be egregious with the bike lanes, okay? It was a very, very faded, very narrow bike lane. There was tons of crashes. And unfortunately, this time last year in this neighborhood, there was actually a biker that unfortunately got hit by a car and passed away, died. So I think the city expanding the bike lanes, making a dedicated lane for bicyclists is a good thing, right? Especially as more people are coming back to the city. Our case is there's no real reason for most people to have cars. I wholeheartedly disagree with that, but I respect the opinion. I respect that. ATC is here. Good to see you, ATC. Welcome. Now, I think sometimes we could be short-sighted because we're walking around Manhattan, right? But if you go to a flyover state, you need a car. It's not like you're going to get around on a bicycle in Kansas. MBALI says they will let you skateboard down the pedestrian-only street. They will. You know what? That's actually a thought. It's a good thought, MBALI. We have to break out the skateboard this summer. We'll see. You know, I've been really sketched out lately because the city's getting crazy, guys. I mean, I love New York City. It's the greatest city on earth, but it's just too much crazy stuff going on to be skateboarding around. During COVID, I was doing it because there was pretty much nobody here. But I mean, these people will run you over with no remorse and won't even stop. These people are crazy. Hey, the Austin Tennis. Hey, Tom, happy Friday. How's the quarter shaping up? Any big deals? Yes, Austin Tennis. Can't talk about it yet, but we have some, guys, we have some really, really cool stuff in the works. As you know, I am no longer in tech sales anymore. I've had a very lucrative and very good career, and we are in talks, gonna probably close a big deal here soon. I can tell you guys about it. I think you guys are gonna be excited as well. Because this has been a long time in the making, and this is going to be a big deal, and I'm excited about it. I think there's a lot of opportunity, but stay tuned. But Austin Tennis, I'm going to turn that. Was that Austin Tennis or Austin City Limits? It was the Austin Tennis. Austin Tennis, I'm going to turn that question right back around on you, pal. How is the quarter turning out at PagerDuty? Any big deals? And also, if you can give us some insight into customer churn, right? Because in the tech sales world, usually what happens, right, when you have an economic downturn, your customers that were growing with you so much during the economic expansion, adding licenses of software, you know, unfortunately, when they have to start laying off employees, they call the account executive up and say, hey, I got to cancel, 80 licenses. And as an account executive, you really try to get the customer not to cancel. Here's one of the things I would do to prevent customers from canceling, because I've worked with customers, through multiple business cycles, and oftentimes, and you'll actually see this show up in the earnings report sometimes. So for those of you who are not familiar with tech sales or, sales in general, I'll give you a little bit of insight here. Oftentimes, revenue growth at a SaaS company, even during a recession, can grow, but you'll see a big hit to gross margins. And analysts will be asking, they're like, wait, you were growing revenue at the same CAGR, 6 months ago, and you had margin expansion, but now you're actually growing revenue faster, but you have margin compression. Well, why is that? Well, it's probably because of sales concessions and credits. Oftentimes, the account executive will go to the customer and say, look, I think it's a little bit premature for you to be canceling the licenses right now. How about we work out some sort of sales concession where we give you a credit, or we temporarily pause billing on those licenses for 3 months. After the 3 months, we'll evaluate the economic condition. Maybe in 3 months things improve and you have to rehire those employees. And if you do have to rehire those employees, well, you already have the software in place. Does that sound good? Would you agree to something like that? And we saved a lot of customers from canceling, from doing just that. But obviously that impacts the bottom line because you're giving a customer free stuff, right? Sales concessions. So any insight there? Is PagerDuty doing anything like that? All right, guys, this is a very famous building in New York City. This is the Flatiron Building. I'm not sure if you guys heard, but there was actually a gentleman who made an offer on this building, I think over $100 million. The offer was accepted at auction, and then he never made the deposit, never made the down payment. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. I don't know what the legal ramifications are if you could just bid on a building, get your offer accepted, and then refuse to make the down payment. I think you're going to be held legally liable for that, but we'll see. Hey, Fred X, what's up, man? Good to see you. Oh, Hawaii says it's up for auction again. Okay. Now, Hawaii, I would think, and I don't know, to be honest, but there's probably going to be some sort of repercussion, some sort of fine or some sort of penalty. You can't just bid on a building, get your offer accepted, and then just ghost it. Krog Dog says that's like an American Greed episode in the works. Darren is here. Tom, good evening. What's up? Good to see you, Darren. Michael Joseph says, Tom, are you in private equity now? Stay tuned, Michael Joseph. I'll tell you on Twitter. If you DM me, I'll tell you. The Austin Tennis' customer churn is crazy right now. We are the most expensive option, so it's hard to avoid, especially with current economic conditions. Yeah, I mean, you guys see, Austin Tennis, apologize. That's what you're going to have to deal with, right? I was an account executive and then an enterprise sales director for many years. And I had to deal with that stuff. But here's the thing. Is try to think too short-sighted. And my advice would be always, always, always think long-term. I don't care what your manager says. I don't care what the director of sales says. You got to think long-term, and you got to be compassionate with your client. And I'll tell you why. When you're dealing would say like a director of operations, right? And they're calling you up to say, hey, we're gonna cut back on spending. And if you show no remorse and you just try to be a sales guy and just keep the client from canceling without providing any type of concession or any type of help and try to work with the customer, you got to put yourself in their shoes. They're going through an extremely emotional time. They're laying off their people, okay? Your clients as a salesperson, as an account executive, as an enterprise account executive, your clients are essentially the bearer of bad news to their employees. And that's not an easy thing to do. I've had to fire people in my life, in my career. It's not easy. It sucks. So you want to be the account executive that says, look, I totally understand. We're going to get through this together. Let me help you run the financials, and we'll figure out a way where we can keep you on, at least get you to about 70% billing. Maybe we'll suspend some licenses, and we'll see where the economic environment is, in 3 to 5 months, right? Because sometimes, and it's true, and I've been in this situation before, where people can just cancel licenses and turn down their infrastructure prematurely. And then you have the IT director calling you up at 2 o'clock in the morning and saying, oh no, we got to get this site back online. We got to get this site back online. We shouldn't have canceled this. So you really got to be in the driver's seat and be somebody that they can trust. But don't be the person that doesn't show compassion to the client while they're laying off their employees. That is not the right way to go. So always think long term there. All right, I think we're making good time. We're about an hour in. We should be able to do about 20 minutes in the West Village. If you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video. Click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these live streams about 5 days a week between New York City and Miami, Florida, talking about the financial markets. Now, this company, Okta, ticker symbol OKTA, is actually a cybersecurity company. Now, this company, their office is actually pretty cool, by the way. I've never really seen a first floor office, but they specialize in a form of cybersecurity called IAM, which stands for Identity and Access Management Cybersecurity. Hey, Jeep Guy is here. What's up? Always a pleasure. RK, welcome. Hawaii, this is Tom. I just read the guy who was going to buy the Flatiron building that ghosted still wants to buy it. I thought he never put up the deposit. I think he needed to make a $19 million good faith down payment, and he never made the payment. I don't know what's going to go on with that, because, here's the thing. You would think the Flatiron building, right? We'll talk about real estate now because we were going to talk about it before anyway. If you think about a building like the Flatiron building, it is so unique and it's so iconic to New York. But you would think it would be worth tons and tons of money. You would think it would be priceless. You'd think it'd be valuable, right? Well, not really. Not really, because the building is a little bit awkward, right? It's good to look at. It's aesthetically pleasing. It has a ton of history in New York. But has anybody ever been inside the building and seen the office units in there? It's very awkward. It doesn't really fit for a modern day office type of environment. The layouts are very weird. It's very, very narrow. It just doesn't jive with the newer type of office space. So even if somebody were to buy it, what would you do with it? I don't know. Could you convert it into residential? Could you make a hotel out of it? I don't know. Any thoughts there? Does anybody have any insight on that? Hey, Beacon, New York, says Tom, will you be visiting Skinny Atlas this year? Nice place to hang out in the summertime. I will not be visiting Skinny Atlas this year, but can't rule it out for years in the future. I think I would probably buy a place maybe on the lake later in life. As you know, for those of you who don't know, seems like there's a big party going on somewhere. I think right up there, huge party going on. For those of you who don't know, Skinny Atlas is one of the Finger Lakes in upstate New York. It's one of the cleanest lakes in the entire world, not even in the United States, but in the entire world. And there's a lot of really nice farmland up there. There's a lot of nice vineyards up there in Skinny Atlas, New York. So yeah, I'd be open to purchasing a piece of property up there for sure. Justin S. is, didn't they just have billboards on it mostly the past couple of years? Well, I think the only tenant in there was a T-Mobile store, I think. And it was in the ground floor, but I think all of the office space was vacant. I think. But on the ground floor, I think there was a T-Mobile store, maybe a Sprint store back in the day. Bill says the bidder runs a major trust, not sure what all is available to go after. I mean, we'll see. Zadis has loved the Finger Lakes in Broome County. Yeah, it's really, I think it's going to be very sought after. I think it's going to be very sought after, that particular area. All right, so now we are here at East 17th Street, everybody. This is Union Square. We are almost at our destination, but since we've talked about gold tonight, I think it's appropriate to talk about the other form of gold, the digital gold. Now, Bitcoin rallied throughout the day today. It's sitting right on its 50-day moving average, and also Ethereum is rallying too. I think we're trading at just under a hair, I think maybe 3 or 4 points under 2,000 on Ethereum, and then for Bitcoin, I think we're trading at what, 29.6? Now, my prediction over the weekend, I think we are going to break back above 30,000, but you know, regardless of if you like it or not, you know, there's probably about a 50-50 split of people that say, I don't care about Bitcoin, I think it's fraud, and then you have the Bitcoin maximalists. Now, the reason why we're talking about it is not because if you like it or not, it just showcases the global macro environment that we've been living in. And that involves lack of trust in the financial system, in the monetary system, the modern monetary system. I think there's a severe lack of trust in it. You know, if the average American can't feel certain and safe that their money is going to be there in a bank when they wake up, and the bank's not going to collapse and go under, well, they're going to look for alternatives. And those alternatives are going to be in the form of outflows from big banks or regional banks into gold, into silver, into commodities, and into Bitcoin and Ethereum. So I think that's probably why you're getting this big bid here, especially as we've had yet another bank fail and Jamie Dimon pick up the scraps on that. But any thoughts there? Anybody have any exposure at all? Anybody think we're going higher, going lower? Michael Joseph's Catskills in Eastern Appalachia is some of the best places if you could take the weather. Yeah, I think in the spring and in the summer it's really beautiful and it's really nice. Now, if you live in upstate New York during the winter, it is really brutal. I mean, it snows almost every day. And you're talking about pounding snow, like 8 inches a day. You know, one snowstorm will be a foot of snow. And they call it lake effect snow, for those of you who don't know. It's this really heavy and wet snow called lake effect. It is really horrible. All right, so we are officially Union Square. This is 14th Street. This is the south side of Union Square, right outside of the Whole Foods right here. The Austin Tennis' Tom will the 24/7 live stream come back. I miss it. I'm trying to do something like that. I just got to get my Azure server up. Now, you'd be surprised. It's very cumbersome to get those 24/7 live streams going. So I gotta see, but it will be making an appearance for sure. Now, Whole Foods, Amazon owns Whole Foods. And now that we've gone through the bulk of earnings season of the companies that everybody really focuses on, knows, and loves, we've been talking about how this market is very thin. The market is extremely, extremely thin, right? It's being held up by the big mega cap players like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, and the like. So I think it's appropriate that we review the profitability of those companies throughout this quarter's earnings season. So we're talking about Q2, Q1 earnings. Let's make our way around this. This is a brand new PF Chang's that opened here. Now check this out. If we want to talk about net profit, right, or net income, we're talking about profitability here. I'll try to cross the street, so maybe there's a little bit less pedestrian traffic here. Apple made $24.2 billion, okay, in net income this quarter alone. I mean, think about that for a moment. Now, granted, I think that's actually 3% decline year over year, but Apple raked in $24.2 billion in net profit. If you think about Microsoft, we were just talking about them, ChatGPT and the like, they raked in $18.3 billion in profitability this quarter. You talk about Google or Alphabet. This actually used to be one of my customers, by the way, way back in the day. This company and EJ Electrical Contract, they used to be two of my biggest customers. Anyway, Alphabet or Google brought in $15.1 billion in net income. Amazon, who we were just talking about, the owner of Whole Foods, brought in about $3.2 billion in the quarter. And last but not least, our good friend Mark Zuckerberg at Meta raked in $5.71 billion. Oh, there's a homeless guy yelling. There's been a lot of erratic people I've been seeing in the city. So if we think about that and we put that into perspective, as we've been talking about earnings season, right, and talking about, you know, the percentage of stocks advancing versus the percentage of stocks that are declining, it's no reason why institutions are crowding into these very big mega cap names, because these are the really, I shouldn't say the only companies, but the bulk of the companies that are generating significant profits and aren't seeing too much earnings compression and earnings decline. Even though earnings are down year over year, you know, you still have, I mean, double-digit billion-dollar profits, net income. In the distance, you can see the gorgeous One World Trade Center. Michael Joseph says, Tom, in my opinion, Azure Cloud Services will overtake Amazon AWS soon. Well, I think Amazon, you know, Amazon, to Michael Joseph's point, Amazon had a really good first mover advantage in the cloud. Now, if you think about the big three, you think about AWS, Think about Azure and think of Google Cloud. Now, AWS has the lion's share of the market, but Azure and Google's cloud unit, are catching up. Now, I think, and you guys could correct me on this, I think this earnings season, this is the first quarter in Google's history where their Google Cloud unit was profitable. Well, let's cross here, which is good news. Because if you think about the growth, right, if they continue to compound out, let's just say if it grows at a, like a high single digit CAGR, right? Extrapolate that over 10 years. I mean, you're talking about significant profits just in the cloud computing unit alone. That's huge. Paz2 says, Tom, Azure will probably integrate with ChatGPT. Maybe. We'll see. I think the biggest thing for me is I think Apple's going to need to come out with a competitor very, very soon. NBA Elias says, no more waiting lists for Bing's AI GPT. Let me take a screenshot of that, NBA Elias.
I had one teacher who actually didn't give me a...
Michael Joseph says, I use AWS and Azure. Azure blows AWS out of the water. It's more code friendly to developers. That's interesting. Now that's another lucrative career path, to be in cloud sales. So if you want to be an enterprise account executive, maybe at Microsoft Azure, or even maybe at AWS, those are very lucrative career opportunities. All right, I just want to make sure we're making good time here. We're about to be on the campus of New York University, or NYU. You'll notice the transition from the very, I should say, gaudy architecture of Billionaire's Row. You think about 157, you think about Central Park Tower, and then as you go make your way to Lower Manhattan, right, and in the Village, you sort of see the more original, more contemporary architecture, not so in your face, these ultra luxury, ultra tall, super skinny skyscrapers. It almost feels like you're in a completely different city altogether. And I think that's what I like about the West Village so much. You guys will see what I'm talking about in more detail in a minute. Some of the townhomes here can go upwards, I think at a base starting at 10 million. Some of them go all the way up to like 35 million for an amazing townhome in the Village. Just very unique, very gorgeous properties. And here we are finally at the very entrance of Washington Square Park. Maybe I'll take you guys on a quick lap through here. Now, the city did a really, really good job. I think I showed you guys this before. But the northwest side of the park used to be absolutely horrible. Well, I'm talking about really bad. Drugs, homelessness, crime. City cleaned it up. City cleaned the whole thing up. There used to be trash all over the place, and now it's really, really nice. So maybe we'll take a walk. Well, we're gonna pass it anyway, so I'll show you guys. But the park's really nice. Park's really nice. Joe Driver says, Tom, you would be very surprised how much of Manhattan NYU owns. Yeah, NYU owns pretty much all of the buildings around here. Pretty much all the buildings around here. That's a good point. Yeah, Krog Dogs is apparently there's about 20,000 people buried beneath Washington Square Park. That is true. This is actually a cemetery, or was a cemetery. Now, I also think there was a big cemetery or a big burial ground for Native Americans in Central Park, I think. But Krog Dog, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Now this reminds me of my college days. I used to come here on the weekends very late at night, after work, hang out. I'll show you guys the fountain. This is the fountain here at Washington Square Park. Now in the spring and in the winter and in the fall, they drain the fountain out, and there's a lot of skateboarders that hang out here, skate around. You could actually see the Empire State Building through the arch here. Hey, Nikki says, I love your channel. Thank you, Nikki. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Bree Graham says, New York should tell Phoenix how to clean up the zone. An area downtown has 1,000 homeless people living there. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big issue across the entire United States. Look at that shot. I mean, that's a 10 out of 10 shot. What do you guys think? If you were to give this frame a score on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think? I'm saying 10 out of 10. Beautiful Empire State Building right here, under the very famous Washington Square Park arch right here. Hey, Smee Media, what's up? Happy Cinco de Mayo, by the way, Smee Media. Good to see you here as always. Now, another thing I love about Washington Square Park is not only can you see the beautiful Empire State Building, but you can see One World Trade Center here too. All right, onward, team. Look at how mini this guy's skateboard is. All right, let's head to the West Village. We're gonna head directly past the northwest spot of Washington Square Park, and you guys will be able to see just how much they've cleaned it up. They did a great job, the city. Now, it's mainly because a lot of the residences that are living in and around the park were complaining so much. I don't blame them. What is this? Looks like there's, oh, looks like some sort of barbecue, like grill, cookout. That's cool. Oh, never mind, maybe they're back. I think they're back now, actually.
You didn't call, obviously.
Well, it was clean for a moment, I guess. Maybe now that the weather's coming back out. Or I should say now that the weather is getting a little bit nicer. Maybe some of the people are back. MBA Elias says, do you need a permit to grill in Washington Square Park? There's no rules in Washington Square Park, man. This is whatever you can muster up in your imagination goes here. It is, there's no regulations that apply here, dude. It's whatever your heart desires applies. All right, speaking of these beautiful townhouses, I think real estate broker Ryan Serhant has a really nice listing over here. It's a totally gut renovated townhouse. I think you guys are going to enjoy the facade on the outside. It's totally resurfaced, totally renovated. Now they're actually renovating the two townhouses right next to it too. You can see the scaffolding. And these are very, very sought after and coveted properties, particularly the full unit townhouses here. I'm trying to look for the signage. Ah, here we go. Check this out. You could see it's pretty much a total remodel. Really beautiful, very dark black outlining of the windows. All new brick, very bright red brick too, really nice. Here, I'll take you guys a little bit closer so you guys could actually see the listing. But this is what I love about these townhouses so much. Look at the detail on the doors. These are really, really bright and heavy. These doors are really heavy too. these oak wood doors. Really beautiful. Love the detail on the gates on the outside. Now this is 80 Washington Place. This is a Sirhan signature listing, I believe. And they're renovating the second townhouse next door as well. And you can sort of see the inside. Look at how modern and beautiful it is. Sort of a combination from, you know, old New York style architecture to new modern. Maybe you guys could look that up on StreetEasy or Zillow, 80 Washington Place, and you could actually see some photographs of the listing. Just from looking through the windows there, really amazing piece of property. Check that out, guys. I wish I could actually show you the inside, but 80 Washington Place, wow. The inside is a total gut renovation, unbelievable piece of property, right on the campus pretty much of New York University. Austin City Limits is like, Tom's actually gonna buy the townhouse. I wish, man, I wish. It's a little bit out of my price range. Maybe if we all chip in together. So here's an exact example of what I was talking about. So if you remember to the beginning of the live stream, we started recording from 57th Street, Billionaires Row, all of the super tall, gaudy, glass, in-your-face, very skinny skyscrapers. And now you have this very beautiful transition to the older New York style architecture, right? And I think it's actually, I don't know, it feels more homey to be in a place like this as opposed to, you know, maybe on Billionaires Row. Although I wouldn't be complaining if I was living on Billionaires Row. But I don't know, I feel like if I was raising kids or something like that, I think it may be a little bit more ideal to get a townhome. May feel a little bit more homey. I don't know, what do you guys think? Would you rather have a place, an apartment in New York City in a brand new, ultra luxury, high-end, in a high-rise apartment building? Or do you prefer the brownstones in Brooklyn? Do you prefer the brownstones on the Upper West Side or the townhomes in the Village? I don't know. I think if it came down to it, I think I would still choose the Billionaires Row style buildings, but I think it would be a close call, to be honest. Now, as we cross over 6th Avenue here, this is actually West 4th Street, you guys are going to be able to see much, much more of these exact homes that I'm talking about, these townhomes. They're gorgeous. Somebody says hit up St. Tuesday, awesome little speakeasy. You know, I don't think I've heard of that. Let me take a screenshot of your comment there. Thank you for the recommendation. Now, it's funny. My family came to the United States. My great-grandfather immigrated to the United States from County Mayo, Ireland. And that's the business we were in. We were in the alcohol business. We operated speakeasies in Manhattan. Right down here, Cornelia Street, is one of the buildings where Taylor Swift used to live. I think she moved out. This is a really unique street. You guys will be able to see a lot of the outdoor dining facilities here. But this is an awesome piece of property. You're going to see it actually has its own private driveway. Anytime in Manhattan you have your own private driveway, you know it's going to be money. Now this one's very unique and quite cool as well. ATC says you prefer the brownstones a little bit more. Hey, Jay Ham says, damn Tommy, you Irish? Me too. Yeah, I'm 50-50, I'm about a mix. Irish-Italian, I'd say. 50-50. Very stereotypical New York, Long Island mix there, right? Irish-Italian. Notice how quiet the blocks are too, really beautiful. I'll try to give you guys a better view of some of the buildings. Look at this little restaurant here. Hey, Ian is here. Good to see you. NBA Elias's arches are awesome. Yeah, they are. I mean, it's just, and again, if you're thinking about moving to New York City or buying a place, renting a place, I think these are all the things you need to consider, because New York City is so diverse, not only in its people, but in its architecture too. Just really depends on what you're looking for. Now, I think this is the exact apartment with its own garage. I mean, how unique is that to have your own garage and your own driveway in Manhattan? I think the rent on this probably goes in excess of $50,000 a month. And very light car traffic too, especially on the side streets. You can see all the outdoor dining venues still here. It looks really nice. Scaffolding really complements the outdoor dining structures too. SME Media, I don't know what that is. Yeah, today I thought there would be a lot of people out for the Cinco de Mayo, right? Isn't that a big holiday? I think a lot of people celebrate that. But I was telling the chat earlier that as I was walking around the city today, it was kind of dead. There was really nobody in the city today. Now, quite the contrary to the rest of the week. I mean, earlier in the week, we had the Met Gala, we had Tiffany jewelry store, the grand opening there on Fifth Avenue, the brand new remodel. Now, we talked about that in detail, in depth, as we covered LVMH, one of the most valuable companies in the world, a French company. The CEO is actually the richest man on earth, overtaking that of Elon Musk. And they acquired Tiffany. LVMH acquired Tiffany. They did a complete rip and replace and a total remodel of the Tiffany store, and it's gorgeous. It's unbelievable. They finally took all the scaffolding down. It is totally ready to go, and it's open too. There's a restaurant on the top floor. We'll take another quick lap or two around the village. Ah, Brad's brain. Because I thought Cinco de Mayo would be huge in Houston. But I think it's actually bigger in Kansas City. Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's too many people out in New York tonight. Here's another shot of some of these buildings, more the old original style. Hey, Manthony18 says, thought that place with the garage was Taylor Swift's place. I think it was. I think she may have moved out, but you're 100% spot on. Right there on Cornelia Street is where Taylor Swift lived. Well, look at these. I'll cross the street so you guys can get a better view. I like coming to the village. Very seldom do we come here. This is the corner of Bleecker Street and Morton Street. Look at the facade of all these buildings. Very old colonial style. Really beautiful streets. Now, I think that's why you've probably seen more price appreciation in the village in compared to many other parts of the city, because people want more of a homey feel, in my view. Now, this is John's Pizzeria. John's Bleecker, very famous. However, you can't get individual slices here. You only can order full pies. So only come here if you have a lot of friends, or if you're extremely hungry, you can come here. No slices, John's Bleecker. It's good. It's good. I wouldn't say it's the best. I think there's other spots that are better, but it's good. It's a good place. I like it a lot. It's on the corner of Jones Street. This is one of the things I love about New York City. You know, just walking around the village, all these different bars, all these different restaurants. People are outside, people are dining outdoors. And this is what we were lacking all throughout the pandemic. It was actually kind of depressing walking around this area during the pandemic. But now things are pretty much back to normal and open now. I think this is my favorite building on the block. Very unique, right? The contrast between the solid white building and the bright red fire escapes really makes the building pop in comparison to the others on the street. Hey TC, this is glad you're back, Tom, and feeling better. TC, thank you so much, my friend. It's good to be back. It's good to be back. I had a crazy sinus infection, man. And it was probably the worst one that I've ever had in my life, by the way. It was horrible. I'm trying to find the building.
9 months.
Ah, here it is. I'm just getting a little bit mixed up. We got to go up one and then over 2. And then these, you guys are really gonna like. You know what, maybe we could cheat a little bit and cross here. Check this out, look at the view as we're crossing. You see all the pedestrians walking, and in the background you have an amazing view of the World Trade Center. Now this shop is called Blank Street Coffee. And Blank Street is a New York coffee company, born and raised and founded in New York City. And their whole value proposition is that if they lease space in smaller sort of retail locations and not have the huge sort of interiors as the Starbucks and the Blue Bottle have, they're able to undercut the cost of a cup of coffee in Starbucks and attract more customers. And the coffee is actually pretty good. I usually go to the one on 57th Street by my office. Hey, JM, thank you so much for your kind $10 donation. I appreciate it very much. Hopefully you're having a good Cinco de Mayo, and thank you for supporting the stream. And here's another beautiful view of the One World Trade Center. AD says, Tom, do you plan to watch the coverage of Berkshire Hathaway tomorrow? I do, my friend. Yeah, so tomorrow I think CNBC is going to have live coverage of the Berkshire Hathaway meeting, or the Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting. I will be watching that, and I would suggest anybody who's interested in the financial markets to do the same. Now, whenever I think about the Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting, I think about that very notable interview with Pershing Square's Bill Ackman. And there was a really telling interview, and the interviewer was asking Bill Ackman, you know, if you had to give advice to, you know, an up-and-coming investor, what would it be? And he's like, you got to be resourceful. And he's like, the barrier to entry is extremely low, and all of the information you need out there is free. He's like, I would sit down and consume and read every single Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting letter, right? Or Warren Buffett letter to shareholders, and consume all of his content, right? If you think about it, all that information is out there for free, and in many instances, it's free for a necessity, right? It has to be. You have to disclose positions and things like that. So I will 100% be tuning into that. It'll also probably be live streamed on third parties like YouTube too. Guys, what do you think of this building? Unbelievably stunning. Now, I'm not sure if you can make this out on camera, but if you try to glance inside, you'll see these unbelievably beautiful built-ins. Now, I'm a huge fan of that, right? In these old colonial style buildings, usually in the library or in the den, you'll have all of these really, really beautiful, really hardwood, usually mahogany built-ins. It's sort of my dream to have an office in a library with all those fancy built-ins there. Let me see if I can get you guys a little bit closer so you can see. Look at the steps going up to the apartment building. That is breathtaking there. Hey, Mothman, what's up, dude? Good to see you. Long time no see. Says, hey, Tom, how are you? I'm doing good, man. Thank you for joining. Ryan Beck says, CNBC usually starts in the morning interviewing people. It's good, I think, around 9. Yeah, I'm going to be watching it. Everybody in finance is going to be there. Everybody who's somebody, big hedge fund manager. I'm looking forward to probably seeing Ray Dalio's interview. They usually always interview him. They'll probably have Andrew Ross Sorkin on the ground, interviewing a lot of fund managers. He's a really good journalist. I enjoy reading his work. He wrote a really good book about the great financial crisis. Now look at this. I think these are some of the original windows here. Love the fire escapes going up and down. TC says, Tom, have you been following Zscaler, trying to figure out why it's been declining? Yeah, Zscaler is a great cybersecurity company. The owner, or the founder of the company, is the CEO. And the reason why a lot of those high beta sort of SaaS companies are getting crushed is because interest rates are going up, right? I mean, if you think about a year-over-year change in Fed funds, it's about a 500 basis point move. FOMC meeting was Wednesday, and we got another 25 basis point rate hike, bringing the Fed funds target rate to 5 to 5.25%. So what happens is when you're in an environment of ZIRP, or zero interest rate policy, I'll give you guys a quick look at some of these townhomes right here, gorgeous. When you're in an environment where interest rates are extremely, extremely low, artificially suppressed, that allows companies to go under what's called a multiple expansion, or a PE expansion, right? Because money is so cheap. So for anybody who has experience working at an investment bank or a hedge fund or something like that, maybe you're an analyst, or maybe you're just running your own fund or running your own personal money, usually you build models that are called DCF models, or discounted cash flow models. And essentially what a DCF model is it's determining the present value of a company's future earnings, right? So interest rates are very important in that calculation. And the reason for that, oh guys, this is similar to what I have. I don't have a Vespa, I have a scooter, but it looks similar. These are really nice. I would love to get around New York City on these Vespas. A little dangerous though for New York, but these are beautiful nonetheless. But anyway, the present value of a company's future cash flows are worth less when rates are going up, right? So if you think about when your risk-free rate is pretty much zero, and all of these high beta SaaS companies are only focusing on growing top line revenue at all costs, well, investors are willing to pay up for that very, very little cash flow because there's really no other alternative, right? Has anybody ever heard of the terminology TINA, there is no alternative? And essentially what that means is, since we can't get yield buying a bond or buying a treasury, we might as well just pile drive everything and speculate in the stock market. But now that's fundamentally changed. Sorry, I'm just getting distracted by, look at this. Look at all of the ivy that's coating the outside of these buildings. These are absolutely gorgeous here. Look at that. So now there is an alternative, right? Let's just take a look at the yield curve. Let's talk about the yield curve today. I think a 6-month treasury is yielding 5%. Now these are on an annualized basis, right? But why would I want to put my money at risk as an investor in a SaaS company with negative earnings, right? Zscaler does have earnings, but it's nosebleed valuations, when I could get a risk-free rate of return, maybe buying a 1-year treasury. I think, where did the 1-year treasury yield close today? Maybe somebody could look that up. If you go to cnbc.com/bonds, you'll be able to see. But the 2-year, I think, is at 3.9%. So if the 2 years at 3.9, that means the 1 year is probably almost at 5%. So if I could go to Treasury Direct and plop $1 million down in a 1-year treasury, make myself 50 grand for doing nothing at a risk-free rate of return, I'd much rather do that than speculate on a growth stock. So I think the environment of TINA, there is no alternative. I think there is an alternative. I think that bonds are actually attractive in terms of yields. And I think that's why a lot of these growth stocks are getting pounded. I think this may be my favorite street we've walked down tonight. Look at that. Team. I think that is the cue for us to stop the live stream. Do you know why? Because the gimbal died, ran out of battery. Well, maybe we could actually continue to stream without it. Let's see. We'll test it out. Let's see. Let's see how bad it is. Hey, JM says, darn Tom, these vids you stream are absolute bomb. Thank you so much. As I stated before, there goes all the other sites when you were online. I appreciate that, JM. J49 says, kick the trash out of the way. Oh, look at the corgi dog. You guys see that? Those are some of my favorite dogs on planet Earth. Anyway, guys, well, we're almost at the 2-hour mark. I think we covered a lot. I'm so happy that I got to show you guys the village. We will be live tomorrow. If you guys enjoyed the live stream, feel free to join us tomorrow. Click the subscribe button if you want to come back another time. We'd love to have you. I'm wishing everybody a very happy and safe Cinco de Mayo and a glorious, successful, safe weekend. So ATC, I appreciate you. SME Media, it's good to be back, and thank you for joining us once again. Hawaii, Richard Vogel, Chan, I appreciate you. Mohammed, God bless you, sir. Abdullah, Brad's Brain, thank you for coming out. Bree Grams, thank you. And to the Mighty Bull, have a good night wherever you are, because there is always a bull market somewhere. You just need to know where to look. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed the stream, and we will see you all right back here tomorrow at 8:30. Enjoy the Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit tomorrow night. Jenny Trickett, Two Wheel Freedom, Captain Super, appreciate you, sir. J49, thank you. Joan K, Austin City Limits, Joseph Hardaway, I appreciate you. Who else we got? We got Michael Joseph, Austin City Limits, Austin Tennis, NBA Elias, and Paul. Thank you guys. Michael Joseph, God bless. We'll see you tomorrow, 8:30. Walks on Wall Street.